There is a moment just before dawn when the sky forgets its darkness but has not yet remembered its light. A pause. The world holds its breath. The wind hushes. The birds wait. It is not emptiness. It is expectancy, as if existence itself is listening. This silence is not absence. It is presence, so full that it spills into every leaf, every stone, every unseen ripple of time. And yet, we run from it. We fill the quiet with noise, afraid of what might speak if we stopped speaking. But silence does not shout. It does not knock on your door like ambition or scream like chaos. It whispers, and to hear it, we must unlearn the habit of drowning ourselves. We were not born talking. Our first language was listening to the rhythm of our mother's breath, to the drumbeat of the heart we grew beneath. Long before words arrived, we knew connection by soundless presence. And maybe that is why the deepest truths still do not speak in sentences. They speak in stillness, in pauses, in the way a pine branch bends without breaking under snow, in the way a mountain simply is unmoved by what circles it. But the modern mind is afraid of such stillness. It races to explain, to argue, to fix, to prove. We respond to silence with discomfort, as if something is wrong when no one is speaking, as if stillness must be filled before it exposes what we are not ready to feel. Yet silence, when honored, does not expose, it reveals. It reveals the subtlety of life, the breath you didn't notice, the tension you always carry, the grief beneath your anger, the longing behind your busyness. Silence does not create these things. It simply makes space for them to be known. To listen deeply, we must first become quiet inside, not mute but still, like a lake undisturbed, reflecting the sky. Have you ever tried to hear the wind's footsteps, or the way light changes as a cloud passes over the sun? These things cannot be heard with ears cluttered by commentary. They ask for a quieter kind of listening, one that does not interrupt. The Zen masters teach us that true wisdom is not in what we say, but in how we see, and to see clearly, the mirror must be still. Words, when unexamined, are like ripples. They distort, they echo the surface, but hide the depth. The tongue is light. It dances easily, but what it releases cannot be taken back. One careless sentence can cut deeper than silence ever could. One loud opinion can drown out the truth, trying to rise in someone else. But when we speak less, we start to hear more. We hear the weariness in someone's laughter, the ache hiding beneath their "I'm fine," the plea inside their silence. We stop assuming. We begin observing. We stop defending. We begin receiving. A wise person does not need to fill the room with their voice to be known. Their presence speaks in quiet dignity. Their eyes do not search for attention, they witness. Their words, when they come, are few, but they land like rain in a desert. Silence is not passive. It is not weakness. It is the womb of transformation. From silence, everything is born: thought, breath, realization, compassion. Have you ever watched a tree stand through a storm? It does not argue with the wind. It does not raise its voice against the rain. It simply remains, rooted, listening, trusting that what passes does not define it. And you be like that tree. Can you stop explaining your worth? Can you stop proving your pain? Can you allow space for others to come to their own realizations without needing to correct them? Because every time we choose to speak less, we open the door for something else to rise. Awareness, clarity, peace. In stillness, we remember that not every reaction needs to be voiced. Not every opinion is a truth. Not every silence is a void. Some are invitations. There is a kind of courage in saying nothing, in letting someone finish their sentence, even when you disagree, in allowing a moment to settle before responding, in hearing not just words, but hearts. The old masters would sit for hours in shared silence, speaking only when the silence itself asked for words. Their speech was not performance, it was response, like a bell rung only when needed. And maybe that's what we've lost, the reverence for the unsaid. In a world where everyone is broadcasting, silence feels like rebellion. But it is not rebellion, it is return. Return to what is real, what is felt, what is present. When we listen, truly listen, the world softens. We stop reacting to the surface of things and start perceiving their essence. We stop trying to win conversations and begin understanding people. The river does not fight the rocks. It flows. It listens to the shape of the land. And in that listening, it finds its path. So must we. There is a silence beneath the noise of thought, a space untouched by worry, by roles, by self-image, a place where you are not your resume, not your wounds, not even your hopes, just breath, just being. Have you visited that place lately? Not in retreat, but in presence. The more we practice silence, the more we realize how much we've missed, not just around us, but within us. There is a whole landscape inside you that has never been mapped by words. And when you touch it, even briefly, something shifts. You become slower, but not stuck, softer, but not weak, quieter, but not lost. You begin to speak only when your words are better than your silence, not because you're withholding, but because you're honoring. In honoring silence, we learn the discipline of restraint, not repression, but discernment, a knowing that not every impulse needs to exit through the mouth. That presence is not always proved by sound. Look to the bamboo, hollow and still. Its strength lies not in rigidity, but in its emptiness, its ability to bend without breaking, to hold space without filling it. So too, the wise do not overflow with opinions. They hold room for truth to echo. When you stop trying to be heard, something beautiful happens. You begin to hear not just people, but the wind brushing the edges of your awareness, the feeling of your own heartbeat, the story beneath your emotions. You begin to hear life, unfiltered, and what you hear in that silence is not always gentle. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, the pain you've ignored, the truths you've buried, the fears you've disguised with performance. But these things do not rise to punish. They rise to be witnessed. Only in silence do they trust they will be seen. That is why silence is a kind of intimacy. It strips the stage, removes the costume, leaves only the raw self breathing, still, real, and in that rawness, healing begins. You no longer defend your silence. You embody it. You no longer need to explain your pauses. They explain you, like a tree explains stillness, by simply standing. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can offer is not advice, but presence, not words, but a hand held in shared stillness. The world is aching, not for more voices, but for deeper listening. In the quiet space between two beings, something sacred happens, a knowing, without language, a comfort beyond solution. That is where real connection lives, not in what we say, but in what we're willing to hold together, wordlessly. So many wounds are not healed by fixing, but by being with. So many hearts do not need to be instructed. They need to be heard. And the first ear we must lend is inward. Because how can we listen to others if we've never listened to ourselves? The body speaks in silence. The soul speaks in silence. But we have grown so loud inside, we forget to hear them. You are tired, not because you do too much, but because you say yes when you mean no, because you speak kindness to others but cruelty to yourself, because you explain, hoping someone will finally understand, when what you need is to understand yourself. And that understanding does not come from talking louder. It comes from sitting still, from closing the door just for a moment to the world's demands, sitting with the uncomfortable truths, the unmet needs, the unresolved grief, and listening, not judging, not fixing, just listening. This is the silence that heals, not the silence of avoidance, but of return, not the silence of repression, but of reverence, the kind of silence that listens until the pain softens, until the resistance melts, until what's real is no longer frightening, only tender. And in that tenderness, you'll find something miraculous. You're not broken. You're just full, full of stories you've never voiced, full of dreams you've silenced, full of feelings waiting to be felt. The silence doesn't erase them, it embraces them. And once embraced, they lose their sharpness, like ice melting into water, like noise dissolving into wind. That's when clarity comes, not in a shout, but a whisper, not in an epiphany, but in a breath. You look at the chaos around you, and for the first time, you don't need to react. You simply see. You see the pain behind anger. You see the fear behind control. You see yourself not as a role, not as a performance, but as a presence. And this seeing changes how you speak. You stop arguing to be right. You stop interrupting to prove your worth. You start asking gentle questions. You start waiting before you answer. You begin choosing words like stepping stones, not to dominate, but to cross the river of misunderstanding. And some rivers don't need to be crossed. Some only need to be sat beside. This is the new fluency, not in language, but in silence. The fluency of the unsaid, the power of presence, the ability to hold space for complexity, ambiguity, emotion without the urge to categorize or conclude. The world has enough loudness, enough declarations, enough noise masquerading as knowledge. But you can be different. You can be the one who pauses before reacting, who listens beneath the surface, who speaks only when the words are an offering, not a weapon. And in doing so, you become a refuge, not a fixer, not a savior, but a space where others can be without performance. You will not always be understood, but you will always be remembered, because silence, when offered with sincerity, is unforgettable, like the mountain mist before sunrise, like the hush that falls before truth enters the room. You don't have to shout to be powerful. You don't have to speak to be heard. You don't have to explain your depth to anyone. Just become still and watch how the world begins to shift around you, not because you forced it, but because your silence allowed something wiser to emerge. There is a sound. Only silence can make a sound felt more than heard. Like the space between notes in a song, it shapes the melody. It is not absence. It is what gives the music its soul. So too in life, it is not always what you do or say that shapes the beauty of your being. It is the pauses, the restraint, the breath before the response, the look that says, I see you, when no words are spoken. To master silence is not to isolate, it is to integrate, to become so rooted in your own being that you no longer need the world to echo you in order to feel real. You begin to understand that some truths are too sacred for noise, that some realizations arrive only when the storm has passed and the waters are still, that sometimes your highest wisdom comes not in speaking more clearly, but in speaking less and listening deeper. This is where freedom lives, in no longer needing to have the last word, in no longer fearing the quiet between connection, in no longer filling the air just to avoid being alone with your own breath. Because your breath is not empty, it is the most ancient prayer you've ever whispered. Inhale, you arrive. Exhale, you let go. Silence is this prayer made visible, the space in which presence unfolds. And the more you trust it, the more you realize you're not here to convince, you are here to witness. You are not here to perform your soul. You are here to meet it. Not everything true needs to be said, and not everything said needs to be true. The wise know the difference. They carry it like a stillness in their spine, a calm in their gaze, a hush in their energy. You will meet people who speak endlessly and say nothing, and others who say little but speak everything into you. Be the second. You will meet situations where silence is mistaken for weakness. Let them mistake. Let them talk. Let them fill the air if they must. You are not obligated to match their volume. You are responsible only for your depth. There is great strength in choosing not to react, great clarity in not needing to explain, and unimaginable power in knowing that the more silent you become, the more you can hear, truly hear, what life is trying to tell you. This is where transformation takes root, not in a storm of declarations, but in a single moment of deep noticing. You will begin to notice the way the light touches your hands when you stop scrolling, the way someone's eyes soften when they feel seen, the way your heart whispers truth when it is no longer shouted over. The wisdom you are seeking is already within you. It's just quiet, and it's been waiting patiently for you to become quiet enough to return. So return not to who you were, but to who you are beneath the noise. Return to the mountain of your breath, the river of your awareness, the sky of your soul. These places do not ask for explanations. They ask only that you be still long enough to remember. In a world that measures meaning by noise, your silence is sacred. You will find that you don't need to speak your truth to live it, that you don't need to argue your value. Your being is the proof that you don't need to shout to be heard, because those who are meant to hear will feel you without a sound. And when you do speak, your words will carry weight, not because you've crafted them perfectly, but because they will be rooted in presence, in peace, in the vast, unshakable silence within you. Let your silence speak. Let it guide. Let it be the wisdom that flows through your pauses, the kindness that rests in your restraint, the clarity that echoes through your quiet presence. You are not here to be louder. You are here to be real. And the real you, the ancient, soft, unshaken self, does not need a microphone to be known. It needs space. It needs stillness. It needs you to listen. And so, in this quiet moment, let us not seek to say more. Let us seek to hear what's always been there. Because silence, my friend, silence speaks. And when you listen, you remember.